damp squib. Yup, that's the perfect way to describe it. South Park Snow Day is a damp squib of a game, and while I appreciate Matt and Trey's desire to branch out into different things, I think they could have done much better than this. Developed by Question LLC and published by THQ Nordic in association with South Park Digital Studios for PC, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 5, and Xbox, South Park Snow Day is a co-op third-person action-adventure game with live service elements. Taking place after the events of the previous games, The Stick of Truth and The Fractured But Whole, the game kicks off with a classic South Park setup. Cartman comes home to find South Park blanketed in snow, and despite the chaos, danger, and death the blizzard causes, he's overjoyed at the prospect of no school and prays for a snow day, which is expectedly granted. Dressed in their fantasy game costumes and rallying the new kid and their other friends to join in on the snowy fun, Cartman reveals the new rules designed to curb the new kid's overpowering exploits in the last two games in the series, and to give players a reason for why they have to start out from scratch instead of having access to all the powers they'd previously gained, thus setting the stage for a town-wide snowy showdown, with each faction led by familiar faces vying for control, until a darker threat is to be found at the cause of the blizzard, forcing the boys and the new kid to work together and free the town from its deadly wintry clutches. But as always, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. While the previous games in the series, The Stick of Truth and The Fractured But Whole, kept to the traditional paper cutout aesthetics mirroring the show, South Park Snow Day makes a move from 2D to 3D that is reminiscent of the last time we joined the boys in a snow-based conflict back in the 90s, but this time ventures towards a more toy-like look to suit the new 3D visuals. In some ways, this enhances the experience, bringing a new depth to the town of South Park. Like when you first run down Main Street, the toy-like 3D art style provides a novel perspective that, like the show, emphasizes the way a child views the world, but there's a bit of an uncanny valley effect where characters and environments clash with the original papery charm, which ends up feeling less like the show or previous games and more like the developers tried to emulate what the fictional town looks like after hearing a very good third-hand description from one of their mates. The game offers a reasonable but unremarkable variety of options for player customization, which doesn't restrict the player from making any character combination they can from what's available to them. You can choose from a handful of outfits and accessories, but the choices don't significantly impact gameplay beyond allowing you to customize your visual appearance. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, since not every game needs that sort of equipment mechanic, but the rest of the combat mechanics and the general gameplay loop also lack any real depth. But character customization was the first time I noticed this recurring theme throughout my playthrough. The voice acting is generally pretty solid, if unremarkable, but the repetitive dialogue and constant need to tell the player where to go, what to do, and how much banter it's capable of bantering gets very tiresome. Combat sounds and effects are often underwhelming, and another area that does nothing to entertain or engage the player, and it often fails to give the gameplay any kind of impact. Snow Day's third-person action combat system is a straightforward and rather uninspired hack-and-slash experience. The player has a selection of 3 melee weapons and 3 ranged weapons, each with their own predictable and rather unsatisfying playstyles. They can equip one of each as well as 2 abilities, ranging from healing totems to weaponized cat piss that dominates your foes' minds and bends them to your very limited will. Added to this is a card-based system for abilities and powers, with different cards granting variant powers and percentile increases to your abilities, defenses, and damage output. Finally, we have dark matter, another currency for another shallow and uninteresting upgrade system, which also adds percentile increases to your abilities, defenses, and damage output. as well as percentile impacts to item drop and ways to make running across the snow less of the absolute pain it always is. Because good numbers go up bigger good, and snow is a pain in the ass. Combat itself doesn't have much tactical or skilled gameplay beyond mashing the basic attack combo, using your abilities at sensible moments, and having your eyes murdered by the crowded hordes, and a frankly lazy UI. Combine this with repetitive objectives, waves of boring enemies, and unengaging levels, and you have a lackluster experience better executed by several other games on the market, and older titles. Multiplayer is the game's main selling point as a live service title. You can team up with friends, or if you don't have any friends, join forces with the NPCs who pop out of the snow and disappear just as quickly. This aspect, combined with unlockables and multiple difficulty modes, is meant to be the key driver for replayability, but it just comes across as superficial padding since the story, set pieces, and general gameplay loop don't provide anything equally or more engaging than what other games already provide, and I feel like I'm repeating myself. The storyline, centered around a seemingly ordinary snow day that spirals into chaos, captures the essence of a classic episode, but doesn't have anywhere near as many laugh-out-loud moments or entertaining character interactions. In-game dialogue suffers from excessive repetition, and players can expect to hear the same thing over and over again in short succession because of the combination of the short list of lines they can say and how often they speak. South Park Snow Day maintains the show's trademark satirical humor, but tends to do so in the most diluted way I've ever encountered, like the use of toilet paper as currency and a barely referenced subplot lampooning real-world events during the pandemic, or how dark matter is just literal fecal matter, and I don't care how much chocolate you put in that cup, there is no way it hides the smell of human excrement. Compared to similar games such as Helldivers 2 or even the classic Castle Crashers, South Park Snow Day struggles to stand out in gameplay mechanics, and while it captures the South Park style, it lacks the depth and engagement necessary to keep multiplayer games of this kind alive for any length of time. If you're a fan of the series, these aspects might outweigh the lesser experience the game offers, but as a South Park fan myself, I can't see Snow Day taking up any more of my time than I've given it for this review. South Park Snow Day has nothing about it that's controversial, not online and not in its gameplay or narrative experience. Let me rephrase that differently, just so you really understand what I'm trying to get at. A South Park title has nothing funny, fun, or controversial about it. Three core pillars that form part of the foundation of the franchise don't exist, and while I'm grateful to see a video game that doesn't have unnecessary online controversy, like the kind we've seen so much of lately, I did expect it to be narratively and comedically controversial, because that's what South Park is and always has been. It's a franchise that makes fun of absolutely everyone, and very rarely pulls any punches. But the closest thing we got to that is one scene where Cartman somehow convinces all the adults that cups of hot shite are actually delicious cocoa with no real effort at all. And this final disappointing realization that us gamers and South Park fans have been given a hot cup of shite instead of a deliciously funny and irreverently mocking episode in the form of a game, made the slog of getting to the end of the boring levels something I wanted to avoid as much as I could, but trudged through the snow and uninteresting gameplay I did until the final boss, which was an unimaginative combination of a dune sandworm and the operatic shit you face off against in Conker's Bad Fur Day. Alright, it's time to sum up and summarize. Despite its simplicity, the character creation process allows players to craft a character without restrictions. However, the overall options for customization are uninteresting, and while expanding these options could enhance player investment and satisfaction, without a better gameplay experience, players aren't going to want to go through the effort of unlocking these items. Combat is basic and not particularly engaging, and its lack of depth or satisfaction in gameplay fails to create long-term interest. The gameplay loop and level designs are repetitive, unoriginal, and give a feeling of being confined in tight trenches and corridor spaces. This wouldn't matter so much if the game was trying to make the player feel claustrophobic to build tension, But combine this with combat being uninteresting and the rewards for gameplay being so lackluster, and the player has no real sense of tension or risk in what they do. Despite the game's setting, interactions and dialogue are repetitive and quickly become tiresome, and the game's audible hand-holding through dialogue prompts and banter become not only incessant but remove any real player agency, because the game is very quick to tell you exactly how to do or solve anything, and it won't stop telling you until you get it done. While South Park Snow Day is an attempt to take the franchise in a new gaming direction, it struggles to be an experience that even the most faithful of fans could love, and I don't think it's worth your time or money. So your best bet for a fun South Park gaming experience is just play Stick of Truth again, while waiting for Matt and Trey to take another crack at providing fans and players with something they can really enjoy and sink their teeth into. I really enjoy seeing you all share your thoughts in the comments and responding to them when I have a chance, so do me a favour and keep pressing the thumbs and telling me which part of my videos are better than others. It really helps me get better at making these, and I really appreciate all the constructive feedback you can share. So keep it coming, and as always, my people, take care of yourselves.